Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Can you play? Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari. I think it's dying. Need a new one. Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana. I think that's okay. I can make it work if it falls. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari. Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari. Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayam Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Ashlata Shata Shishimad has divine grace AC Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Can someone connect here? Bhagavatam, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 2, Text number 27. Parito Vatsapir Vatsamsh Charayan Vyaharad Vibhuhu Yamuno Pavane Kujad Dvija Sankulitangripe Parito Vatsapir Vatsamsh Charanyan Vyaharad Vibhuhu Yamuno Pavani Kujad Dvija Sankulitangripe Parito Vatsapir Vatamsh Charayan Vyaharad Vibhuhu Yamuno Pavani Kujad Dvija Sankulitangripe Parito Vatsapir Vatamsh Charayan Vyaharad Vibhuhu Yamuno Pavani Kujad Dvija Sankulitangripe. Please chant. Dvija Sankulitangripe. Parito Vatsapir Vatsamsh Charayan Vyaharad Vibhuhu Yamuno Pavane Kujad Dvija Sankulitangripe Parito Vatsapir Vatsamsh Yamuno Pavane Kujad Dvija Sankulitangripe Vatsamsh Charayan Vyaharad Vibhuhu Yamuno Pavane Kujad Dvija Sankulitangripe. Mataji. Parito Vatsapir Vatsamsh Charayan Vyaharad Vibhuhu Yamuno Pavane Kujad Dvija Sankulitangripe. Parito Vatsapir Vatsamsh Charayan Vyaharad Vibhuhu Yamuno Pavane Kujad Dvija Sankulitangripe. Parito Vatsapir Vatsamsh Charayan Vyaharad Vibhuhu Yamuno Pavane Kujad Dvija Sankulitangripe. Paritaha, surrounded by Vatsapaihi, cowherd boys, Vatsan, calves, Charayan, herding, tending, Vyaharat, enjoyed by traveling, Vibhuhu, the Almighty, Yamuna, the Yamuna River, Upavane, gardens on the shore, Kujat, vibrated by the voice, Dvija, the twice born birds, Sankulita, densely situated, Angripe in the trees. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. In his childhood, the Almighty Lord was surrounded by cowherd boys and calves, and thus he traveled on the shores of the Yamuna River through gardens densely covered with trees and filled with vibrations of chirping birds. Purport: Nanda Maharaj was a landholder for King Kamsa, but because by caste he was a Vaishya, a member of the mercantile and agricultural community, he maintained thousands of cows. It was the duty of the Vaishyas to give protection to the cows, just as the Kshatriyas are to give protection to the human beings. Because the Lord was a child, he was put in charge of the calves with his cowherd boyfriends. These cowherd boys were great rishis and yogis in their previous births, and after many such pious births, they attained the association of the Lord and could play with him on equal terms. Such cowherd boys never cared to know who Krishna was, but they played with him as a most intimate and lovable friend. They were so fond of the Lord that at night they would only think of the next morning when they would be able to meet the Lord and go together to the forests for cowherding. The forests on the shore of the Yamuna are all beautiful gardens full of trees of mango, jackfruit, apples, guava, oranges, grapes, berries, palm fruit, and so many other plants and fragrant flowers. And because the forest was on the bank of the Yamuna, naturally there were ducks, cranes, and peacocks on the branches of the trees. All these trees and birds and beasts were pious living entities born in the transcendental abode of Vrindavan just to give pleasure to the Lord and his eternal associates, the cowherd boys. While playing like a small child with his associates, the Lord had killed many demons, including Akasura, Bakasura, Pralambasura, and Gardabhasura. Although he appeared at Vrindavan just like a boy, he was actually like the covered flames of a fire. As a small particle of fire can be kindled from a great fire with fuel, so the Lord killed all these great demons, beginning from his babyhood in the house of Nanda Maharaj. The land of Vrindavan, the Lord's childhood playground, still remains today, and anyone who visits these places enjoys the same transcendental bliss, although the Lord is not physically visible to our imperfect eyes. Lord Chaitanya recommended this land of the Lord as identical with the Lord, and therefore worshipable by the devotees. This instruction is taken up especially by the followers of Lord Chaitanya, known as the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And because the land is identical with the Lord, devotees like Uddhava and Vidura visited these places 5,000 years ago in order to have direct contact with the Lord, visible or not visible. Thousands of devotees of the Lord are still wandering in these sacred places of Vrindavan, and all of them are preparing to go back to home, back to Godhead. Om Agyana Timarandasya Gananjana Shalakya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutali Swayamrupakadah Mayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandiham Shri Guru Shri Taparakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamshta Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Ragnatam Vitam Tam Jivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamshta He Krishna Kurna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagat Pate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanustite Devi Pranamami Hare Pare Vansha Kapatu Vyashta Kripasanubhi Vachaptita Nam Pavani Pyo Vaishnava Pyo Namo Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Putale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Itinamani Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Putale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Itinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pisharne Nirvashesha Shunyavadi Pashyati Atishitarne Bhutir Mahadviri Mafpur Vibor Nirmaya Shitaya Mushipurashaha Bhunkti Gunan Shudasha Shudashatmakasha Langashista Bhagavan Pashamsi Me. So before speaking on this verse, today's the incorporation of ISKCON in New York. Is the lunar date, not the solar date. So it's not exactly, if we take so many years ago, today marks the date of 58 years ago. So it was actually, the solar date was 1st July 1966 when it was incorporated. The Srila Prabhupada actually started the process of incorporation in April to May, around that time of 1966. And Mr. Goldsmith, if you've read Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, there was one lawyer that was favorable to the movement, Mr. Goldsmith. He was helping the society get incorporated for free. So the incorporation finished. no, incorporation finished 13th July. I'm sorry. And it happened in 26 Second Avenue. Previously, just some backstory for those who may or may not know, Srila Prabhupada is living in the Bowery, or many different places. He was living in, I think everybody has been, everybody has been to New York. We had that trip. So that Midtown Manhattan, the like high-rise section, we saw Dr. Mishra's apartment. It was by like, was that the Hudson that is next to it? Yeah, the Hudson River. Then there's like a park next to it. It's a pretty major road. It's a very fancy building. So Srila Prabhupada stayed there with Dr. Mishra. Actually, he was staying in his studio, which was down the road. So Srila Prabhupada was staying 72nd Street. It was. He was staying in that area for some time, and then basically Dr. Mishra, well, he wanted Srila Prabhupada to leave, but he was being sort of courteous about it. And then Srila Prabhupada, he himself understood that to preach properly, I can't, stay here. Only basically old widows were coming to hear from Dr. Mishra. There was no real tangible crowd in Midtown Manhattan. So he went to the Bowery, where he stayed with one person. His name was Carl Jurgens, who was later initiated, actually. I think his name was Karlapati. So Srila Prabhupada stayed with him for some months until the boy went crazy. He took, as Srila Prabhupada said, he took LSD, and then he had some sort of psychotic episode where he tried to attack Srila Prabhupada. I'm kind of like hazy with the details. But after that, Srila Prabhupada, he understood that it's not a good place to stay. And so with the help of different well-wishers at the time, then Michael, Bruce, Steve, who were later to become Mukunda Goswami, Brahmananda Prabhu. There were others as well, I can't immediately remember. But specifically Mukunda Goswami, he helped him initially. So from this crazy person's apartment, Srila Prabhupada, he stayed for a few days, I think, with Mukunda Goswami, who was not initiated then. And then from there, they were looking for a place, and then they got 26 Second Avenue. They saw an ad in a newspaper. They got it for a very good price. So Srila Prabhupada moved in there 1st July 1966. So 2 weeks later, almost 2 weeks later, ISKCON of New York was incorporated. So it's significant. Like I said, it marks 58 years since Srila Prabhupada founded his institution. Some reasons why did Srila Prabhupada... So, I mean, a whole class could be spoken on this as to why he incorporated the meaning. Obviously, we've heard, most of us quite often, he chose this name, International Society for Krishna Consciousness, not God Consciousness, on the proposal of one well-wisher, I think, saying that it would appeal to more people. But Srila Prabhupada, he specifically came to preach Krishna consciousness, and he wanted to make that known. So he chose this name, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Not only Krishna Consciousness, he chose the name International Society when he had just acquired the storefront. Previously, he was living in an apartment, so his real formal operation was less than 2 weeks old, but he incorporated it as, and even then discussion was going on beforehand as to what to name the society. So he incorporated it as the International Society of Krishna Consciousness. Previously, he was trying to work with his god brothers in Bengal and Navadvip, Mayapur, actually, technically, and he was reaching out to at least one, I think Tirtha Maharaj, he was reaching out to, trying to cooperate with him. If you read Srila Prabhupada's early letters, you see this. Srila Prabhupada is trying to get support from his god brothers in India to send men and money, and in return, Srila Prabhupada would open up a branch of the Gaudiya Math, that specific section of the Gaudiya Math, you could say, within New York. So he proposed like this. But they declined with a good reason. If you look at although it seems now obvious that like there was a huge mistake on the part of his god brothers, if you look at the letters, Srila Prabhupada was asking for something like, I think like 15 lakh rupees or something like that. If I remember, 15,000 rupees, something like this. Which, if you convert that to American currency today, basically Srila Prabhupada was asking for $5 million from his god brothers in India. So it may seem like, his god brothers were just like not willing to help him, but Srila Prabhupada was asking for a lot, somebody going to a foreign, it's just like, if I go to like China, where ISKCON isn't established, and I want to establish my own society, and I write a letter to the GBC saying, please send me, suitable amount of men, $5 million, and I can open a nice society here. So, I mean, if I do it, then you could say, well, I told you so. But at the time, it seemed pretty unfeasible. So, Srila Prabhupada, he incorporated his own society in New York, ISKCON, International Society. Why he chose this name, International, a lot could be said. He may have known it would have gone international. He at least had that vision of an international society. Some other reasons Srila Prabhupada incorporated the society so early as he did, even though he didn't have disciples. Really, nothing was organized at that point. In one conversation, Srila Prabhupada mentions that you can't revolt against the government. Religious societies in America, they have to be incorporated. So we're just following the law. So Srila Prabhupada did that. The idea of following the rules and regulations of the American government. Another reason, this is from another letter, quote, American foundations don't contribute anything to any institution or organizing it if it is not properly incorporated by the law of the land. In other words, if you're not a society, you're not incorporated, people aren't going to give you money. People won't give you donations. And Srila Prabhupada was specifically trying to get donations from people in India to establish temples. So, yeah, I'll just glossing over this letter. So for this reason, there's so many foundations in America who receive donations and contribute, etc. So therefore, he says, I've recently incorporated one organization under the name of International Society of Krishna Consciousness. So for the sake of getting help in America from donors and from people in India, he incorporated society. It gives you official status. So that's another reason Srila Prabhupada incorporated in America. So yeah, that's in brief. It's still going strong in some regards, in some places, 58 years later. We're not exactly ISKCON. I won't speak on that. Srila Prabhupada defined ISKCON variously, and I'll just mention in brief that Srila Prabhupada did give scope for followers outside of ISKCON, just like Srila Prabhupada incorporated the society outside of the Gaudiya Math. So similarly, there's scope for that. It's not it's not outside of the bounds. So I don't want to tangent off into that, but that's the founding of ISKCON in 1966. That was ISKCON in New York. Srila Prabhupada, he had each temple incorporate things, at least in America, separately. So there's consequently ISKCON of Atlanta, ISKCON of New York, ISKCON of Houston, and they're all their own separate societies. Srila Prabhupada, he wanted his disciples to become expert and managing and competent to carry out all those affairs. So generally, we refer to ISKCON, but actually, at least in America, it's own individual temples. So anyway, some points. So the verse, there's a lot of nice points in the verse that just as I was reading it, I was thinking about. So again, I'll read the translation once more since there's a gap. In his childhood, the Almighty Lord was surrounded by cowherd boys and calves, and thus he traveled on the shore of the Yamuna River through gardens densely covered with trees and filled with vibrations of chirping birds. So there's a nice picture of Vrindavan that's given here. It's mentioned on the shores of the Yamuna, there's trees of mango, jackfruit, apples, guava, etc. And all of these are pious living entities who's taken birth in Vrindavan to give pleasure to Lord Krishna and his devotees and to enhance their pastimes. Specifically, it said of the cowherd boys here that there were great rishis, and some, or nityasiddhas obviously, and yogis in their previous births, and after many such pious credits, they're able to attain the association of the Lord. There's a verse like this in the 10th canto. Actually, it's not just by pious credit. In fact, it's not by, even though that's said, this pious credit is meant devotional credit, because not just by performing karma kanda, fruitive karmic sort of piety, it's not that by giving charity to the poor, you go back home, back to Godhead, or attain association with Krishna. It's by agyata sikriti, or specifically that which is, you could say, gyata sikriti too. That devotional service performed unknowingly and devotional service performed knowingly. Generally, to come to such a stage, you need devotional service that's performed knowingly. Presumably, these rishis and yogis, they're inclined towards the process of devotional service. It's not that just they're impersonalists. Because impersonalists, otherwise they would go to the impersonal Brahman. They had to have some sort of devotional inclination, some knowledge of Krishna. So like this, yeah. So specifically, I want to talk about this last point here. Although there's many points mentioned in the purport, Srila Prabhupada talks about Vrindavan. The land of Vrindavan, the Lord's childhood playground, still remains today. And anybody who visits these places enjoys the same transcendental bliss, although the Lord is not physically visible to our imperfect eyes. Srila Prabhupada, he writes in the Nectar Devotion that somebody who visits Mathura Mandal, he can directly perceive the transcendental atmosphere of the place, even for a few days. Even non-devotees, they say. He says, and this is proof of the transcendental nature of Mathura. Mathura, also Navadvip, Jagannath Puri, etc., the dhams, Ayodhya, etc., the holy place, the dhams of the Lord. Another point that stood out is that Uddhava and Vidura visited these places to have direct contact with the Lord, visible or not visible. So Vidura, when he went to Vrindavan, or Uddhava too, Vidura specifically, because he went so on pilgrimage, physically, Krishna wasn't there in Vrindavan, actually. He wasn't visible. Although, it's almost as if a contradiction to have direct contact with the Lord, although he's not visible. How do you have direct contact with something you can't even see? So, but the devotees are always in touch with the Lord, directly or indirectly. Just like Lord Chaitanya, he was always, I mean, he is Krishna himself, but he was showing, by example, separation from Krishna, but he was always in contact with Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada writes in one place in the second canto that, in relation to the super soul, of course, that one shouldn't, I'm paraphrasing, that one shouldn't lament the absence of the Lord because he's always with the living entity, at least in the form of super soul. So, and of course, for those who visit Vrindavan, Krishna's pastimes are still going on today. As said, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he writes of Lord Chaitanya that those who have the vision to see, he can see Lord Chaitanya's pastimes still being enacted today. I think it specifically said that his dancing specifically. So those with the vision can see. Those elevated devotees, they can see. And then thousands of devotees of the Lord, the last sentence, thousands of devotees of the Lord are still wandering in these sacred places in Vrindavan, and all of them are preparing themselves to go back to home, back to Godhead. So this is the point I kind of want to discuss on. So there's 5 processes, important processes: Sadhu Sangha, Nam Kirtan, Bhagavat Shravan, then Mathura Vas, Sri Murti, Shradaya Sevan. So association of devotees, Sankirtan, chanting the holy names, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam as we're doing, serving the deity, deity worship, and then Mathura Vas. So Mathura Vas means residing in Mathura. Mathura means Mathura, that land in what is now known as UP in Delhi. Also, which is the transcendental abode of the Lord, something like 83 miles in radius, I think Srila Prabhupada mentions. Vas means residence. So literally means living in Mathura. Mathura also encompasses Vrindavan. Some of you have been. Mathura is the greater area, you could say the district, the sort of like major town, or at least now it's practically a city, but during that time, even then it was sort of a city. Ugrasena was ruling Mathura before Kamsa, so it had some prominence. Within Mathura district, there are so many villages. One village is Vrindavan. Within the greater scope of things, of course, now it's become developed due to the presence of Delhi, but formerly it was just as if any other village, quite small place, you could say. Small but not small. It's simultaneously a small village, but Krishna can expand Vrindavan, so it's completely unlimited. There's a small number of residents, but at the same time, there's an unlimited number of residents. Is talking about here the cowherd boys. There are innumerable cowherd boys. There are innumerable cows and calves in Vrindavan. There's innumerable residents of Vrindavan. Even though it's just a village which presumably would have a small population, there's an unlimited population. This is the transcendental nature of Vrindavan. So yes, within Mathura, Vrindavan is there. So when we say Vrajavas, Vrajavas specifically refers to residents of Vraja, also means Vrindavan. Vraja is also the land surrounding Vrindavan, Vrajamandal. But they're all, in other words, they're all the same thing. Mathura Vas means living in Vrindavan, for those who are unaware of the geography. So it's an important limb of devotional service. Srila Rupa Goswami, he lists it, and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami also quotes that it's among the 5 most important processes of devotional service. It's said here, Srila Prabhupada, he writes, all of them are preparing themselves to go back to home, back to Godhead. And the Mathura Mahatmya, Srila Rupa Goswami, he says that to leave one's body in Vrindavan guarantees entrance into Goloka Vrindavan. This is cited in the Nectar Devotion. So to leave one's body in Vrindavan means you're going back home, back to Godhead. Generally, devotees, we can understand. Srila Prabhupada, he himself set this example that at the end of his life, when he understood that it was time to leave, that he had signs from Krishna that his pastimes are winding up, his time is coming to an end. He took the effort. He went to Vrindavan. He left from Bombay at the time to Vrindavan, and he stayed there. And he stayed there the whole time, other than a brief visit to Bhaktivedanta Manor in UK, London, and then Bhaktivedanta Manor. Other than that, the last 6 months or more of Srila Prabhupada's time in this world were spent in Vrindavan, preparing to leave in Vrindavan, which he ultimately did. So he set that example for us. I will speak more on that a little bit later. More about the glories of Vrindavan. This is again from Nectar Devotion Padma Purana. Liberation is the greatest result that can be attained at other holy places. So we have this name Tirtharaj, king of all holy places. So there's so many other different holy places. There's innumerable holy places within India. But specifically is mentioned about Mathura, that these holy places, other tirthas, they can bestow liberation, but Mathura is very special because devotion to the Lord can be attained at Mathura. Padma Purana says this. Mathura, it bestows dharma, artha, kama to those who have material desires. It awards liberation to those desiring liberation. So Mathura can give you that too, just like Bhakti Yoga, if you want dharma, artha, kama, if you want sense gratification, if you want liberation, Krishna can give you these things if you so wanted, if he wants to give you these things. But Bhakti can give you even more than that. He can give you pure love of Godhead. So similarly, Mathura, Vrindavan is non-different from the Lord, as is stated here. So it awards bhakti to those desiring bhakti. What intelligent person will not take shelter of Mathura? Mathura is the most auspicious and is greater than Vaikuntha. By staying only one day in Mathura, bhakti to the Lord appears. So by even staying in Mathura one day, Vrindavan in one day, the potential is there for devotion to the Lord arising. In fact, it's such a potent process that it can awaken feelings of ecstasy even in a neophyte. That's specifically why these 5 processes are the most important, because they have this potency. Srila Rupa Goswami gives the point. Of course, not for everyone, but the potency is there as possible. So yeah, Srila Prabhupada said living in Vrindavan is like living in the lap of Krishna. Krishna's influence can be... that transcendental nature, Srila Prabhupada, I was quoting earlier from the Nectar Devotion, is Krishna's influence. By living in Vrindavan, and just by staying in Vrindavan, you can feel that everything is going on by the will of Krishna. Krishna is governing things. It's said differently at different times. Sometimes it's said that Vrindavan is Krishna's land. He's in charge there. Elsewhere, it's said that Vrindadevi, Tulasi Maharani, she organizes everything in Vrindavan. She's in charge of Vrindavan's affairs. Then we have Vrindavaneshwari, which refers to Srimati Radharani herself. So she's at times taken as the controller of Vrindavaneshwari literally means controller of Vrindavan, queen of Vrindavan. So I guess in the highest sense, Krishna is overseeing things in Vrindavan. Ultimately, Srimati Radharani herself is governing things in Vrindavan. If one wants to live in Vrindavan, one gets that residence granted by the mercy of Radharani. It's just like Mukunda Datta Prabhu, he was saying that in Vrindavan, this is sort of an obscure point, but in Vrindavan there's something called what do they call that? What's the abbreviation for that? Vrindavan Mayapur Trust? MVT. So basically, which is like residence. There's like residences, apartments, you could say, just behind the Krishna Balaram temple, ISKCON Vrindavan. And so it's like packed out. That's like, some of the top, like most wanted, like that's to live right next to, and it's within ISKCON too. It's in one way or another within the jurisdiction of ISKCON properties. So there's a very desirable, many devotees want to live in Vrindavan, and that's, right smack next to the Krishna Balaram Mandir. So Mukunda Datta Prabhu, he was relating to us that, how like miraculous it was that he managed to get a house, apartment, basically, in the MVT. And he said, it's Radharani's mercy that I'm able to do this, at this stage, So one is granted residence in Vrindavan by the mercy of Srimati Radharani, Krishna as well, and one is kicked out of Vrindavan also by Radharani. So these things, and one can be residing in Vrindavan, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're residing in Vrindavan. or rather, it may not be you get the full effects of doing so. Again, I'll get onto that in a little bit later. Just more points about Vrindavan. So Srila Prabhupada, he wanted devotees to live in Vrindavan. He wanted devotees definitely to visit Vrindavan. He said even if it's a difficult austerity, even if there's some difficulty, you should go to Vrindavan every year. He said that to devotees. He wanted devotees to live in Vrindavan and develop Vrindavan. Lord Chaitanya, he himself wanted Vrindavan developed. Therefore, he sent specifically Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami. And then the other Goswamis, they consequently came and helped them develop Vrindavan. So Srila Prabhupada similarly wanted Vrindavan developed. He built a temple there, ISKCON Vrindavan, Krishna Balaram Mandir. He established a trust to renovate dilapidated holy places in Vrindavan, and Mayapur too, principally Mayapur, but also Vrindavan. And he wanted disciples to stay there and provide an ideal example by their behavior. He said, I'm paraphrasing, I want Goswami-like men living there. I want devotees to go to Vrindavan and to learn to live like the Goswami, live ideal lives like the Goswamis, and set an example for others. Elsewhere, my own spiritual master, he quotes that Srila Prabhupada, at other times, he said you should spend either 3 days or 3 years in Vrindavan, meaning you either stay there a short amount of time, just for pilgrimage, and you can go around, go to the temple Srila Prabhupada established, see different tirthas there, different places, holy places, and then quickly get out of there. Because if one isn't in the proper consciousness, then being in Vrindavan, one's devotional service is multiplied 1,000-fold, but his offenses are also multiplied 1,000-fold. So it's very dangerous. It's very fortunate and also very dangerous. If you slip up in Vrindavan, it can be a very great impediment in your devotional service. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada, he warned like this. Of course, that's the 3 days. There's also the 3 years. Because if Vrindavan has to be developed, there's so many preaching opportunities there. There's so much work to be done there. It's a holy place. So the 3 years means if you're going to stay in Vrindavan, you should do so with a long-term plan that I'm going to render solid service to the Dham. I'm going to do steady service, as many devotees have done, just like during Srila Prabhupada's time. They helped build Gurudas Prabhu, Yamuna Mataji, Tejas Prabhu, in another indirect way from Delhi. He was raising the funds for it. They were helping build up Vrindavan. So they were residing in Vrindavan, at least some of them I mentioned, with the intention of building up, in other words. So we have other examples in our movement. Panchagoda Prabhu now, who my spiritual master says has the most difficult job in the whole of ISKCON, being temple president of ISKCON Vrindavan. He's resided there for so long, managing the temple. Of course, he travels too. There's another exalted devotee that was there. Just forgetting his name. Who's the cook there? Do you know offhand? What's that city outside of Jagannath Puri? You went there. What is that? Bhuvaneshwar Prabhu. He was the cook for Krishna Balaram for I don't know how long, for decades actually. Yeah, Prabhupada disciple. He was there. And every day he would lead the kirtan in the 24-hour kirtan there at like 3 o'clock. He was singing the same tune every single day. He was very fixed in his service. And you could equate him something to like, we know Janani Vas and Pankajanabha Prabhus from Mayapur, at least some of us are familiar. I would equate him with somebody of that like nature, in other words, for like Vrindavan. He's brahmachari. He stayed brahmachari the whole time. He's very fixed in his service. He left his body some years ago, but he stayed in Vrindavan. He rendered very serious service to Krishna Balaram. He was very serious about his service. And he was an ideal devotee. He lived an ideal life in Vrindavan. So Srila Prabhupada, he wanted people like this to live in Vrindavan and cultivate it. And by doing so, you get so much mercy, you know. At other times, Srila Prabhupada would say that Vrindavan is for inspiration only, that our real work is all over the world. Meaning that actually attaining Vrindavan means, or gaining access into Vrindavan, of course, is done through the spiritual master, Goswamis, Lord Chaitanya, etc., like that. And ultimately, Lord Chaitanya wanted this cult preached all over the world. So entrance into Vrindavan isn't just by setting foot into a district in India. But real entrance in Vrindavan means attaining the mercy of devotees, attaining the mercy of Krishna, and then gaining that spiritual entrance into Vrindavan. Just as we can bathe at Radha Kund, we can take a dip in the water, but that doesn't mean we're bathing in Radha Kund. So similarly, like that. Of course, there's so many people living in Vrindavan that aren't devotees. Of course, generally, residents of Vrindavan, they have a sort of natural Krishna consciousness about them. And as Srila Prabhupada writes here, there are many thousands of devotees of the Lord still wandering in these sacred places. There's many exalted devotees in Vrindavan. There's sampradayas of all sorts there. All four sampradayas are there, practically. Of course, at the same time, there's many bewildering things in Vrindavan. If you go there, you can see. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said that referring to so Vrajavasis, we hear this term. Vrajavasi means one, just like we say karmi, so this E indicates like one who has taken up the act, one who has taken up the act of karma. Vrajavasi, one who lives in Vrindavan. So who is a Vrajavasi? Our acharyas give multiple different understandings. Actually, generally, the understanding is one. So I was speaking, there are many people who are living in Vrindavan, but they're not necessarily devotees. They're living in Vrindavan, or they're Vrajavasis. And the opinion of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he says no. Non-devotees who are living in Vrindavan, who have settled in Vrindavan, he says, they're like, just like we're saying here, Aghasura, Bakasura, they're like demons who have entered into the Dham. They're not really residents of Vrindavan. They may be residing in there, but their intention is different. And he said, and Srila Prabhupada agreed with this elsewhere in his purports, that visiting Mathura Mandal for sense gratification, or living in Vrindavan for sense gratification, what's the result of such? I was quoting earlier that one who leaves his body in Vrindavan, the result is he goes back home, back to Godhead. But for non-devotees, what's the result of that? One who lives in Vrindavan for sense gratification, the result is he becomes a hog or dog in his next birth. Who's in Vrindavan, which is good. And then he attains liberation after that. So it's not all bad. In fact, it's a pretty good deal, but it's not, they can't be non-devotees living in Vrindavan. We can't place them on the same status as Yashoda Mai or Nanda Maharaj, for example. There are many quotes by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur I don't necessarily have here, but he wasn't at all impressed with non-devotees living in Vrindavan, and he didn't equate them exactly with Vrajavasis. But on the other hand, he did equate the animals and even insects living in Vrindavan with Vrajavasis. During one incident, there was a fly just buzzing around Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and one disciple was trying to fan it away, to get it away from him. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he stopped him, saying, "Why are you doing this? He's a resident of Vrindavan." So he held the animals and insects of Vrindavan in high regard in this. He considered them Vrajavasis. Another incident that comes to my mind, I don't remember where I heard this. This Gopi Puranadhana Prabhu, who was with the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, he's a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. He translated the Bhagavatam, actually, the 10th canto, 11th canto, 12th canto. He has his own works, Brihad Bhagavatamrita. If you know him, you know him. He's a very exalted devotee who's left his body now, but he spent many years living in Govardhan specifically, and so he had a lot of devotees living in ISKCON, Krishna Balaram Mandir. Generally, is kind of like a bubble, and that the temple, especially if you're living within the temple grounds, you're kind of like, you get you interact with the residents of Vrindavan a little bit, the local inhabitants, but generally devotees kind of are like in their own world a little bit. But when you're in Govardhan, so I've heard, you kind of you interact, you're a little more estranged. If you've been to Govardhan, you know it's quite out there. So you interact with the local residents quite more to get food, in terms of like dealing with the Goshala, which was also around there. So Gopi Puranadhana Prabhu, I'm just making the point, he had quite extensive dealings with the local Vrajavasis. And in his opinion, that the Vrajavasi, it doesn't refer to those, what he would argue, even demons, people of demonic mentality who are living in Vrindavan, doing abominable things, meaning like, unmentionable things. There's even in Vrindavan, for instance, modern Vrindavan, there's mafias there, for instance, among other things. There are many unsavory elements there. So he had some experience of this. And so in his opinion, he said that Yashodamai, Nanda Maharaj, etc., the eternal cowherd boys, which you're reading about here, those are the Vrajavasis that are being referred to. The people who have settled in Vrindavan now, who are of demonic mentality, of course, they're not Vrajavasis at all. They're not being referred to in Shastra. We hear about, of course, a devotee should respect every living entity, but generally there's that. When we go to Vrindavan, we're being very careful, but we shouldn't have a rosy view of some of the people who are in Vrindavan. So this is his Gopi Puranadana Prabhu's opinion. This is something I heard maybe a year ago or so. Srila Prabhupada, I mentioned that he wanted devotees to live in Vrindavan. He wanted people to become Vrajavasis, actually. There's one quote by Srila Prabhupada saying that. Of course, there are people living in Vrindavan, devotees living in Vrindavan, neophyte devotees. They may not be non-devotee demons, they may just be neophyte devotees. There are other quotes by acharyas regarding this. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he won a parikrama of Rajamandal once, and he gave the opinion that after going all around Vrindavan, he said, I'm disappointed because I didn't find a single Vaishnava there. And his disciples were quite shocked, actually. Srila Prabhupada, he similarly said that if you take, at least during the time of Srila Prabhupada, if you take all the Goswamis, Babajis, and so-called Mahatmyas, which are living in the Vrindavan, and you combine them together, and you look what they've done to advance Lord Chaitanya's movement, they haven't advanced his movement, his preaching cause, even 1 inch. So what's the value of their so-called living in Vrindavan? Srila Prabhupada, he similarly considered the residents of Vrindavan, the modern, during Srila Prabhupada's time, I won't comment now, a lot of the same is still going on, but a lot has changed. Srila Prabhupada, he considered the modern residents of Vrindavan to be mainly third-class devotees who are not trained or conscious of pure devotional service, principles of pure devotional service, or even the higher levels of devotional life. And most of them don't follow any proper standards of behavior or spiritual discipline. So you could be, I don't have extensive knowledge, I've never lived in Vrindavan, so I can't comment so much, but presumably the same thing is going on today. There are many Sahajiyas in Vrindavan. Probably some of the biggest Sahajiya community is in Vrindavan. There's so many Sahajiyas there. There are many Sahajiyas living in Radhakund within Mathura, specifically. Generally, they live in Rajamandal, Vrindavan itself. People with so many different conceptions of devotional service and thinking themselves to be on a high platform and taking this advice of Rupa Goswami, they think it necessary to live in Vrindavan in order to go back home, back to the Godhead. And they look down upon those who don't live in Vrindavan. But if you consider it, if you look at great devotees of the Lord, we'll take the associates of Lord Chaitanya specifically, many of them didn't live in Vrindavan actually. Pundarak Vidyanidhi, who is the guru of Gadadhar Pandit, he didn't live in Vrindavan. Haridas Thakur, who's the Namacharya, who we glorify every single day, who's the Acharya of chanting the holy name, he didn't live in Vrindavan. He never went to Vrindavan. Similarly, Srivas Pandit, who is Narada Muni himself, he's part of the Panchatattva, he never went to Vrindavan. Shivananda Sen, Ramananda Roy, Shiki Mahidi Prabhu, who's among the and then Madhavi Devi, the intimate, confidential associates of Lord Chaitanya, who he would only speak about elevated topics of Krishna Lila with, they didn't go to Vrindavan. Not only did they not live, they never went to Vrindavan, at least externally, of course. Gadadhar Pandit himself, who is the incarnation of Radharani within Chaitanya Lila, he never visited Vrindavan either. So it's not necessarily that by planting one's physical body in Vrindavan, that's not necessarily equated with Vrajavas, always. Some benefit is there, like I was saying, you may get Dharma, Artha, Kama, etc. like that, maybe even Moksha if you're fortunate. But if you're really fortunate, you'll get Krishna Prema. But even then, one can attain the results of Vrajavas. Elsewhere, Srila Prabhupada will explain as living in a holy place, if you read Srila Prabhupada's books. And he equated his temples with holy places. He said these temples are Vaikuntha. Clip that quote out. In Melbourne, in 1976, I don't have that quote, sorry. In 1976, Srila Prabhupada equated with Melbourne. He said, don't think that this is not Vrindavan. Don't think that, okay, well, the deities are here, they're being worshipped, but Vrindavan is somewhere else. He said, no. If the devotees follow the principles purely, then, of course, generally he said Vaikunta, but Vaikunta, same thing as Vrindavan. Specifically in Melbourne, he equated with Vrindavan. So that same Vrindavan atmosphere, and also resonance in Vrindavan, it also means living in a holy place, living in Samana Shuddha Sattva. Specifically for his temple, Srila Prabhupada equated them with Vrindavan, so long the principles are being followed, so long the atmosphere is maintained. Elsewhere, Vraja means to walk, also, as another meaning of Vraja, other than the physical location. So anyone who is, my spiritual master gives the understanding, anybody who's, actually, this is a quote from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, I'm sorry. Anyone who is walking on the path of satisfying Krishna is a Vrajavasi, is a better understanding, which is true. So it's not necessarily, we shouldn't understand that somebody has served Krishna, Srila Prabhupada, his guru, his whole life, and because he didn't leave his body in Vrindavan, he attained an inauspicious destination. One can leave his body in Vrindavan and not be as fortunate as one who serves the movement in Krishna all his life. His destination is more fortunate. He's an actual Vrajavasi. I said that Srila Prabhupada wanted many devotees to visit Vrindavan, many devotees to stay in Vrindavan. So I was speaking about going, the real, Srila Prabhupada, he wanted this, going out and this idea of preaching the cult of Vrindavan all over the world, glorifying Vrindavan all over the world. And one quote, Srila Prabhupada said that the best way to glorify Vrindavan is by distributing books. By distributing books, Vrindavan's glory will be spread all over the world. And this way, it's also Dham Seva. It's not only Sankirtan, you're also glorifying the holy Dham as a form of Dham Seva. At least formerly, and I think so even now, I don't know. Of course, Srila Prabhupada, he would split, I'm just making it simple, the money of the BBT, the revenue of the BBT, was split 50-50. So for those I think even now, some principles followed, I don't know exactly. But the BBT does send money to Mayapur, that much I know. So by distributing books, it contributes to, at least formerly, they were helping build Srila Prabhupada's temples in Vrindavan, Mayapur like that. Now, that's still going on to some degree, I know. That's some percentage of the books that are sold from the BBT is being sent to Mayapur and is helping establish that TOV, Temple of the Vedic Planetarium there. So not only is it Sankirtan, distributing books, it's also a form of Dham Seva. You're also contributing to help build up the Dham. So yeah, that's there. So preaching in relation to Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada, he himself is an eternal resident of Vrindavan, and he set an ideal example by going outside of Vrindavan to preach. And he criticized, many people were telling him at the time, before he left, that why don't you just stay in Vrindavan and conduct your bhajan like that, and you can at the end, why are you trying to leave Vrindavan? But Srila Prabhupada himself, he went outside of Vrindavan, and he preached, and he set setting the example for so many others. He established the International Society of Krishna Consciousness. It wouldn't have happened if Srila Prabhupada didn't leave Vrindavan. This is one quote from Srila Prabhupada. Preaching Chaitanya's cult throughout the world is more important than staying in Vrindavan or Jagannath Puri for one's own personal satisfaction. Spreading Krishna consciousness is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. Therefore, sincere devotees must carry out his desire. Pritiviti aji jata nagaradigram sarvatra prachara hoibi moranam. I mean, it's quite simple, we know it, but there's many people who don't understand this actually. They think to live in Vrindavan and to chant the holy name there is like the be-all, end-all devotional service. That's good, you can do that. We're not discouraging that, but preaching Lord Chaitanya's cult throughout the world is more important than staying in Vrindavan or Jagannath Puri for one's own personal satisfaction. If your spiritual master orders you to do so, if you're trying to develop a project there, that's okay, there's scope for that. But we shouldn't have the misconception that because I'm not living in Vrindavan, I'm missing out, some sort of idea like that. There's one other quote I wanted to read. You can bring it up because it's quite, if I can bring it up, I lost it. This is Bhagavatam 9, Canto 9, Chapter 11, chapter 11, text number 25. I'll just read the whole thing, beginning from the translation. Shukadeva Goswami replied, after accepting the throne of the government by the fervent request of his younger brother Bharata, Lord Ramachandra ordered his younger brothers to go out and conquer the entire world, while he personally remained in the capital to give audience to all the citizens and residents of the palace and supervise the governmental affairs with his other assistants. So what does this have to do? Srila Prabhupada gives an amazing purport to this. You can skip down to the second paragraph. Lord Ramachandra showed his favor to his brothers by ordering them to go out. Many of the Lord's devotees residing in Vrindavan have taken the vow not to leave Vrindavan to preach Krishna consciousness. But the Lord says that Krishna consciousness should be spread all over the world, in every village and every town. This is the open order of Lord Chaitanya. And I quoted that verse. And then, a pure devotee, therefore, must execute the order of the Lord and must not gratify his senses by remaining stagnant in one place. And it's very interesting. Living in Vrindavan for the sake of sense gratification, Srila Prabhupada calls here, you're being stagnant, in other words. Falsely proud, thinking that he does not leave Vrindavan, but chants in a solitary place. And because he does not leave Vrindavan, but chants in a solitary place, he has become a great devotee. He's quoting his own spiritual master here. One poem, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has written. A devotee must carry out the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, said Jari Dikatari Kaha Krishna Upadesh. Every devotee, therefore, should spread Krishna consciousness by preaching, asking whomever he makes to accept the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord says, Sarva dharman prityaja mamikam sharanam vraja. Abandon all varieties of religion and surrender unto me. This is the order of the Lord who speaks as the supreme enjoyer. Everybody should be induced to accept this order, for this is victory, Digvijay. And it is the duty of the soldier, the devotee, to impress upon everyone this philosophy of life. Of course, those who are Kanishta Adhikaris do not preach. But the Lord shows mercy to them also, as he did by staying personally in Ayodhya to give audience to the people in general. So Srila Prabhupada is saying here that those who... in other words, those neophytes residing in Vrindavan, out of Krishna's mercy for them, he allows them to do so. But those who are more fortunate and those who are more elevated go outside of the Dham in order to preach. I'll finish it. One should not mistakenly think that the Lord asked his younger brothers to leave Ayodhya because he especially favored his citizens. This is a super important point. It's not that because one is residing outside of Vrindavan, it's not that he's less favored by the Lord, and that one who is residing in Vrindavan is more favored by the Lord. Somebody can live in Vrindavan, but he has some favor of Krishna to have access in Vrindavan, undoubtedly, but it doesn't necessarily mean he has the special favor of the Lord. Rather, one who, as is in the case of here, Lord Ram's younger brothers, they were sent out of Ayodhya and they were given the special favor of the Lord, actually. The Lord is merciful to everyone, and he knows how to show his favor to each and every individual person according to his capacity. One who abides by the order of the Lord is a pure devotee. So there's a super important purport for understanding resonance in Vrindavan. One who abides, what is the order of the Lord? To preach Krishna consciousness all over the world. One who abides by this order of the Lord is a pure devotee. Pure devotee doesn't mean going to Vrindavan and chanting the holy names. You can chant more rounds than Haridas Thakur and living in Vrindavan, but that doesn't mean you're a pure devotee. But if you abide by the order of the Lord, even if it means going outside of Vrindavan, you're way more elevated than you would have been had you go to Vrindavan on your own mental trip to go and chant unlimited rounds of the holy name. It has been going on throughout history, at least of ISKCON, probably too, formerly. During Srila Prabhupada's time, there was one disciple who was a little bit crazy, actually. He was a little off. He just told Srila Prabhupada I think he wanted to go to Vrindavan, and then he was given some service in Vrindavan, some management position, and he got fried out with it. He didn't want to do it. He bluntly told Srila Prabhupada, I just want to stay in Vrindavan, not be bothered by all of this. I just want to chant in Vrindavan. Srila Prabhupada, he mercifully allowed him to do so, and what was the result of it? Basically, he stayed around devotional service, but he couldn't maintain residence in Vrindavan. He couldn't maintain that so-called vow of chanting he wanted to take up. So he just left. He went back to America. He had some sort of lull in devotional service, and then he never really took it up seriously after that, actually. He was he was the disciple of Srila Prabhupada, had respect for him, but he never really approached that platform of pure devotional service, we can say. He may have attained Srila Prabhupada's mercy, who can say, I don't know, but we can understand, there's so many examples. I'm citing one amongst many, still as going on today. You see, many devotees, they think that the pinnacle is like you have to go to Vrindavan, you have to leave your body in Vrindavan, you have to chant the holy name of Vrindavan, and anybody who's not doing so is a complete idiot. If you're here distributing books and preaching in America, you're an idiot. You should come to Vrindavan, you should chant in front of the deities, and they have a philosophy like this. But they don't make advancement. They're making advancement only within their mind. Some benefit may be there, but they don't have the mercy of the spiritual master. Spiritual master that never in our line have they ordered such a thing. Lord Chaitanya didn't order such a thing. He sent Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami to Vrindavan. What did he tell them? You develop the holy places there. You compose literature. He didn't say you just live secludedly and chant the holy name. Of course, that was there as well. They were also chanting the holy name. But they were doing so many other different things. So, similarly, but Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was particularly hard in this point. Srila Prabhupada followed his example. So we shouldn't be deluded by the devotees. There are many people, it looks like they may practice very seriously. They may be even very austere, but we shouldn't be deluded by this philosophy. The real thing is, as Srila Prabhupada writes here, one who abides by the order of the Lord is a pure devotee. So we don't necessarily care for residence in Vrindavan in that way. Our real goal is to become a pure devotee. If that means Krishna allows his residence in Vrindavan, great. If Krishna opens the gate to Vrindavan, great, wonderful, we'll take it. If he doesn't, anyway, our purpose is just like devotees. If it's not favorable for their devotional service, they don't even accept the 5 kinds of liberation. If it's favorable for their devotional service, they accept it. If Krishna arranges this situation such, our devotees will accept it. But at the same time, we shouldn't think we're not living in Vrindavan. Because as I explained earlier, Srila Prabhupada's own temples, these temples are Vrindavan itself. There's a Vrindavan atmosphere cultivated there. So, Hare Krishna, that's all I'll say about that point. I could keep ranting on, but I think that's enough. So I can end my class there if anybody has any points or questions or comments or complaints.
Well, I have a question. In this purport, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning...
Which one? This one? Or
no, the one that we read from today. Is it on even? Hare Krishna, okay. So, who is this Garbhasura demon?
I meant to look that up. I do not know offhand. Garbhasura.
He says these different demons. There you go, Bakasura, Pralambasura, and Gardabhasura. Is it... I don't know who that is. Who is that?
Yeah, I don't know. I would have to look into it afterwards because I haven't heard. Outside of this purport, I've never seen that. Garbhasura. Ass demon.
Oh, I see. That's Dhenukasura, is it?
Dhenukasura?
Okay, Dhenukasura, okay.
Gardhasura.
Gardabhasura, I see. I guess it's another name for him. And Prabhu, also I wanted to know, what is this, we've heard many times like Yoga Maya, Vrinda Devi, Bhakti Devi, what's the exact, you were quote,
yeah.
So what's the, who's who, what's what?
What's the exact question?
So, Yoga Maya, we know she's Purnamasi.
She's Krishna's sister.
Yeah, she's Purnamasi. Okay. Oh, but then I thought she's Purnamasi, right? That's Yoga Maya, isn't that?
Well, you see this is where it gets very confusing.
Yeah, exactly.
Subhadra is Yoga Maya, she's Krishna's sister. Literally, So, but that's explained in some parts of the Bhagavatam. Elsewhere, I forget where I read that exactly. That was Brihad Bhagavatam, I think it was Purnamasi. So, yeah, exactly how that works, I don't know.
Okay.
It's quite hard to understand. Tulasi Maharani is different. They're all expansions of Radharani in the ultimate sense. This is my ultimate understanding.
Right.
Okay? Because Srila Prabhupada explains like that. Radharani is like the highest, most, just like Krishna is the source, fountain, and so similarly Srimati Radharani of all Shakti Tattva. So, generally when we hear Shakti Tattva, we think of something else, but but yeah, like that. So but their arrangements are different. Just like Yoga Maya facilitates Krishna's pastimes, right? So she's in, but Tulasi doesn't necessarily, Vrinda Devi, she's not necessarily making arrangements for the pastimes of Vamanadev. For instance, we don't hear about that. At least I haven't heard about that. There may be some Shastra, but I haven't heard about that. But definitely Yoga Maya is making arrangements, undoubtedly. So, like that.
So Yoga Maya is different from Vrinda Devi, and Vrinda Devi is different from Bhakti Devi. Like, so what's the deal
Bhakti
with
Devi is definitely different from Vrinda Devi. This is a fact. Who Bhakti Devi is, I don't know.
Okay.
But I know this is definitely a fact.
Okay, so Yoga Maya, you were saying, is Subhadra?
Subhadra. At least in Mahabharata, it says like
Whoa.
that. It equates Subhadra and Yoga Maya.
Okay, and so there's Purnamasi is also Yoga Maya? Well, like, what's the deal with that?
Purnamasi.
Because she's like the mystic, lady with
that
gray hair in
remembers-
Vrindavan.
Actually, where was that? Was that Brihad Bhagavatamrita? I forget where I was looking. It was somewhere in Vedabase. You can find it in Vedabase. I don't have it exactly offhand.
And so
But
Vrinda
it's from
Devi.
Shastra that's authoritative.
So Vrinda Devi is Tulasi Maharani, if you know that.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And so who's Bhakti Devi then?
Who's Bhakti Devi? That I don't know.
Okay.
I do not know that.
She has two sons named Vairagya and Gyan.
That's really amazing.
What is that?
That is in what is that, the beginning of Bhagavatam? What is that called?
Mahatmya.
Yeah, Mahatmya, in the Bhagavat Mahatmya.
Anyway, so I guess we need to do research about that, right?
Yeah.
And so in this quote you were saying Vraja means to walk, anyone who's walking the
Yeah.
path of serving Krishna.
Satisfying
Vraja.
Krishna is
So
Vrajavasa.
there's a quote of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur.
Yeah, that's quote of Srila Bhakti.
I see. Do you think you could send that to me sometime?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah,
Okay,
I can
thank
see
you.
where it's from. It's in that section.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll send that to you later.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Okay, anything else? The men? For the Matis? Anything? Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam.
Atharva has a question.
What is it? Atharva.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's saying how can we understand Rup Goswami's instruction that one should live on the banks of Radha Kunda and take a bath in the waters daily? You stated that preaching is a more important program than this.
Yeah. Well, if you study the book Nectar and Instruction, Srila Prabhupada makes this point very, very clear. I think you were reading this before you went.
He said, in other words, why did he say this?
So again, Srila Prabhupada, he really reiterates we should come to that point. I'm not saying we don't come to that. I'm not saying we don't reside in Vrindavan. We should reside in Vrindavan if we come to that state. The whole point of Krishna consciousness, the whole point of Srila Prabhupada founding ISKCON is to bring people back to Vrindavan. There are some people, Vaikuntha, they so want, but generally Vrindavan like that. So it's not that we don't go there. It's not that we don't take a bath at Radhakund, but we have to be qualified, Srila Prabhupada will explain. Generally, he would say, well, first you have to perfect the first verse, Vacho Vegam, Manasakrodha Vegam, etc., controlling the tongue, controlling the belly, controlling the senses, controlling the mind, controlling anger. So first we have to control these things, and then we can move on to other verses like that. The problem is that immediately, neophyte devotees, they want to immediately take a bath in Radhakund, thinking that they're fulfilling the import of Srila Rupa Goswami's ultimate verse in the Nectar Instructions. I think it was, Srila Prabhupada, he said they're not bathing in Radhakund, they're bathing in Narkakund. Narka means like hell, basically. They're bathing in the kund of hell because they're doing so with their intent, they're doing so prematurely with the intent of their own sense gratification. So that we don't want. The real thing we want is just like we want gold. We don't want cheap gold. We don't want to be cheated. So that's the explanation like that. Yeah? You have something? And Srila Prabhupada, he specifically emphasized, that you're mentioning preaching, he specifically emphasized this point about perfection by preaching. So how do you advance to being able, the qualification to bathe in Radhakund? You do so by preaching.
I asked our Guru Maharaj the same question a few years ago, and he said that, I think it was Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that really bathing in Radhakund means to bathe with your spiritual body.
Yeah, your spiritual body.
Oh, Bhakti. Okay.
Not
okay.
material body, yeah.
Yeah. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that. And another point that was brought up is that to bathe in Radhakund, or something like to read the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu means to bathe in Radhakund.
Yeah, I think I've heard that before. Yeah, if you see the example of our acharyas too, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, I don't know offhand, but at least Srila Prabhupada, he bathed in Radhakund once, and that was after he had departed this world. His disciples took his body, you can say, to Radhakund and immersed it there. But never during his lifetime did Srila Prabhupada ever bathe in Radhakund. So at least, I mean, in the spirit of following, the disciple following the guru, you know, that's something to keep in mind. So if you're bold, you can do it. His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Swami says. Something like that. Yeah, he says something like it was some lecture, I forget. If you're bold, you can do it, but Srila Prabhupada didn't do it, so I wouldn't do it. So I'm not going to do it. So
Yeah, also, like, I remember one time, Matsya Prabhu told me, like, devotees, like, think that when they read Babe in Radhakund at least once, you know, like the verse in Nectar Instruction, they said they think, like, you have to, like, bathe, like you said, with your material body, but, like you were saying, spiritual.
body, yeah.
Yeah, but they mean, like, ocean of, like, he says, I don't know, his word he heard it from, he said, like, in the ocean of, like, love of Godhead, like, of, like, yeah.
this process is actually, I don't have access to it. Maybe you were telling me about it. I forget. His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Swami, in his commentary to the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he talks about this very elaborately. What it means to bathe in Radhakund. What is the process, like the actual means immersing your spiritual body within Radhakund. What does it mean? I won't speak on that because I don't really remember it so perfectly, nor do I have access to it. So, but you can read about it to come. So that's there. But it's definitely not material body, yeah. So, yeah.
Can I give one example, modern day
Yeah.
example of someone bathing in Radhakund? There's this devotee, his name is Bhakta Richard, that His Holiness Bhakti Vikas Swami mentions in one lecture how he met him somewhere, and this Bhakta Richard, he was saying that he would bathe in Radhakund, I think like 100 times a day or something like that. And this was during the summer.
Yeah, many times, like 10 times or something.
Yeah, 10 times or 100. It was some really big number. But this was during the summer, and then Maharaj asked him, well, what about during the winter? And this Bhakti Richard, he was saying, well, actually, then it's too cold. It was like, then it's like, I'm not sure if he does it at all then. And he was also, he was in Kansas City for some time, this Bhakti Richard. And like he had like a set roster of questions that he would like ask every couple of classes. And so one of them that he would ask like every other week was, so if Krishna is everywhere, then can we worship stool? So I thought this was like a good example to see that if someone's just going there like with a material purpose,
Yeah.
it might not really get the effect, or it might not be so worthwhile.
I completely missed the point. You're doing it, but you have no sort of understanding at all. I used to, you can go there, sprinkle some water on your head, but it's like, Radhakund, your materially contaminated mind and body, which is full of blood, pus, stool, urine, and what is non-different from Radharani herself. I mean, anyway. So, and you can see, I know, Moses, it's actually shocking how big of a misconception, even though Srila Prabhupada, who propagated Krishna consciousness all over the world, and he himself reiterated it so much, it's still shocking how many people misunderstand this to like a superlative degree. It's very, even when we went to Radhakund, nobody was here with me, but even there, I saw the Sahajiyas, Western Sahajiyas, they're full-on bathing in Radhakund, no understanding at all, men and women mixing freely, and it was very shocking, So you don't, what can be said? Narakakund, there's no idea, no question of bathing in Radhakund. So, okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.